You haven't got a menu, got stew and ale.
Hello, wandering traveler. Take a seat if you have the time, and I will tell you a tale. The Tale of Dunkel Fledermaus, the Powder Monkey Rogue. Dunkel lived in the slums of Baldur's Gate. He scrounged for his fill, developing his thieving skills to steal bigger and bigger treasures. He was young when the High Elf who represented Dunkel's family sold the young boy to a band of sailors for gold. Apparently the High Elf had a gambling habit and used his slaves to make an additional income. Dunkel didn't know his name, but he remembered his face. That grin of victory as the captain handed the High Elf the sack of silver and gold pieces. How could a High Elf betray his own brethren, even if Dunkel was only half-elf? Life on the ship was hard. He would mop the ship above and below quarters, often suffering abuse from the sailors. Dunkel would occasionally steal a slice of stale bread from the kitchens if the cook wasn't looking. He began to grow accustomed to the sailors of the Duke, and they eventually began to warm up to the young lad, and began to treat him more and more like the crew as he aged and graduated from Swabby to a rigor where he was invaluable. Even at a young age of 13, Dunkel was more adept at climbing the rigging and working the ropes than most of the veteran sailors on the ship. For a while, the crew became Dunkel's family. For a while, it would make him forget the ache in his heart for home and his real family. It was a beautiful day, a strong wind and few waves to knock the ship about. Dunkel was singing, along with the crew, a common sea shanty when the weather suddenly turned dark. Without warning, black clouds formed about the ship. Lightning arched downwards and struck the mast, sending streaks of electricity down the length and splitting it like a twig. Buckets of rain blinded Dunkel as he tried to grasp this violent shift in the weather. Water began to rise out of the ocean in a spiraling typhoon, and at the bow of the ship a watery figure rose, towering above the ship. Various sea life swirled around the creature's body. What seemed to be the beast's head, two objects began to glow, and the sight made the blood drain from Dunkel. In an instant, the entire ship was splintering and being cast into the sea. The water was tame. Nothing seemed to move. Darkness surrounded him. He had heard the stories of drowning, how it could be peaceful, like falling asleep. Above him, the storm continued on. Crew members floated down past Dunkel. It was now that Dunkel realized what had happened. He looked towards the continued obliteration of the Duke to see a small reef that the ship was about to run aground upon. This was an elemental, a protector of nature. They would have destroyed that small ecosystem, and this creature was punishing them for it. This wasn't Dunkel's fault, but he knew that there was no escaping this creature. If he tried to surface, it would surely tear into him. Suddenly, the ocean surrounding Dunkel began to brighten. He looked up and saw that the clouds were beginning to part. Dunkel's lungs panged him to get air. If he was going to die, it wasn't going to be today. He began to push for the surface. Every move he would make made his lungs scream for oxygen. And suddenly the world began to grow dark. Dunkel found himself floating in a mist that began to surround him. He looked about his floating piece of the Duke. The mist was coming in fast and was beginning to block the sun from view. Out of the mist strode a woman, seemingly perfect in every way. Seashells hung in her hair. Her skin sparkled like the cool waters against the setting sun. She came up to him. A weak and tired Dunkel looked at this magnificent woman. She stared at him for what seemed to be ages, unblinking, then faded back into the mist. Then the fog cleared, and Dunkel found himself adrift in a harbor. Sailors and townfolk on the dock quickly pointed out Dunkel and brought him onto land. He learned from the sailors that he appeared out of the fog, almost as if it transported him there. Dunkel told his story of the destruction of the Duke. Dunkel stood and looked out to sea. Suddenly the moment dawned on him that he was free. He was a welcomed part of the crew on the Duke, but that made him no less a prisoner that was sold to them. Dunkel quickly learned that he was in Skullport, and the nearest city was Waterdeep, a mile north. Dunkel looked out at sea again, vowing that one day he would sail the ocean on his own terms, with his own ship and crew. He would find his father, mother, sister Dawn, and lead them out of the slums to feel the freedom of the ocean, not the illusion of it whilst living under the High Elf's thumb. Now that is all the time I have for you now. Now go away, before I make a tale of you as well.
Safe and sound at home again, let the waters roar, Jack. Safe and sound at home again, let the waters roar, Jack. Long we've tossed on the rolling main, now we're safe ashore, Jack. Don't forget your old shipmate, folly, rolly, 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 ride-o.